I am entirely, completely, financially self-sufficient. I have been for years. Okay, I'm in my 20s. So here's how I afford my dream life. The reason why I'm making this podcast episode is to show you that if I can do it, so can you. I'll be sharing my best financial tips that I utilize for myself, what kind of financial practices I lead, so forth and so on. First of all, I got a new car, Tesla Model Y, red exterior, white interior, long range, model 2024, amazing, beautiful. Secondly, I do trips, I travel all the time. How I can afford that, you'll find out in this podcast episode. We'll talk about my $300 gym membership, making big purchases, whether you should make a big purchase, whether you should not, and so much more. Welcome to my podcast, Launch to Success. Three, two, one. Launch to Success with Vera. All right, now that the intro's done, I totally started over there. These are just the things that I do personally, okay? Do not take this as financial advice at all. Do not even take these other recommendations. Just, these are the things that I do personally. If you happen to start doing them too, then that's on you. That's your full responsibility. And by listening to the podcast, you acknowledge that responsibility, okay? And just signed you to a contract. Just kidding. Now, with my upbringing, I know some people are really smart with money because their parents are, like, they just instilled habits into them. I would never say my parents are bad with money or anything like that, but majority of the things that I have learned and I'll be talking about in this podcast episode, I had to learn by myself. Truthfully, okay? I did not get this as like, hey Vera, maybe you should get a credit card. Like, I had to figure this all out by myself, which I'm not blaming my parents in any capacity. I'm just saying that if I can learn this by myself, so can you. School did not teach me this. I had to learn this. And also, little disclaimer, is I'm not in my peak financial literacy either. These are not tips. This is not advice. This is just the things that I do and how I can afford my dream life. And if I can do it, so can you. So my first ever job was when I was 14 years old. I was a Russian tutor. I found it on Nextdoor. And Nextdoor was, I don't know if you have it still or like if it even exists, but it's a little neighborhood app. You can see what's going on in the neighborhood, so forth and so on. And somebody made a post of like, oh, I'm looking for a Russian tutor. And I was like, oh, I'm Russian. Like, it's my first language. I'll be more than happy to tutor your kids. So I got that job. I was getting paid like $15 an hour. I was low-key balling. I was banking at my 14 years old. And that from that point onwards, as soon as I started making my money, I never asked my parents for money again, for nothing. Like, if I was going to the movies with my friends, if I was getting lunch with my friends, never asked for money. That was all completely on my own. So I guess when I was like 14, from that point onwards, I became financially self-sufficient. Obviously, my parents still paid for like my part of the rent, like utilities and stuff. Because I mean, I was like living in the house, but they also paid for music lessons because I was doing singing lessons, piano lessons, all of that. Because I had a goal of becoming a professional, independent singer-songwriter. Look at where we are now. I'm a full-time content creator and social media coach. So I guess I'm a creative in some capacity, but I am working on my second song. So be on the lookout for that. And you're actually the first to hear about it. Then I started babysitting when I was 15, also through Nextdoor. I think I made a bunch of posts myself, but also somebody made a post like looking for a babysitter, or they reached out maybe. I babysat a lot. I actually have on my YouTube channel, if you're watching this on my YouTube, I have a babysitting horror story time where somebody accused of me hitting their child, which is completely false. That brought so much cortisol onto my 15-year-old self. It was crazy. But I was also making $15 an hour. I was working quite a bit. And every single spare hour that I had, and mind you, I was an academic weapon in my time in high school. I was taking like 10 classes at a time, college ones included, online ones included, absolutely everything. I was not doing any sports up until like my junior year. But I was also having a YouTube channel. I was also practicing music. So I was doing everything at once and babysitting in my spare second. So yeah, I was kind of grinding it out. Did not get much sleep at all. But basically every weekend I worked, the summer I worked, and I ended up making like from babysitting alone like $5,000 that I consistently had in my checkings bank account. So let me do the math right there. $5,000 is 333 hours. So yeah, I don't know how long that took me to accumulate that wealth, but I just remember I just treated that $5,000 in my checking account as zero. Like, I would not spend it. Which brings me to another topic, financial anxiety. I think I had like spending anxiety growing up. I still low-key do, because when I was getting my car and buying it, I'll insert the video on YouTube if you're watching it right here, but my goodness, did that spike my cortisol levels. And it's not like I can't afford it. It's just like, I don't know. I just don't like making big purchases. It stresses me out. We'll talk about that as well. So my big mistake, and if I were to do it again, here's what I would do. Instead of putting all my money into a checking account like Bank of America, I would put it into a savings account. Like, for example, there's Ally, there's Capital One. There are a bunch of different names. You have to do your own research. Obviously, this is not a recommendation. This is just what I would do. Why? Because money loses its value over time. I just posted today. So for you, if you're listening to this on a Wednesday, March 13th, it was yesterday, but I posted a video restocking my new cart with essentials like hand sanitizer and protein bars, and it came out to be $61 at Target. Okay, I got like 6 things, $61. So money loses its value over time, inflation rises. So if you put your money into a high yield savings account, from how I understand it, your money goes with inflation, because the high yield savings account has an interest rate of like 4%, some have 5, some have 3, but basically your wealth builds a little bit, right? So if you have $100,000 in your high yield savings, each year you get $4,000, an additional $4,000 just for your money being there, and that accumulates. So that's what I would do personally, but obviously now I do that, but I did not know those things at the time. And then obviously when I was 18, I opened a credit card. Once again, these are none of the things my parents told me. I just remember in economics class, we had it was a requirement to graduate high school to take it. And our teacher was like, just start building your credit score. Okay. So now I have an amazing credit score because I opened a credit card when I was 18, and just like start putting that's what I started doing, putting little purchases on it here and there. I obviously never bought anything on my credit card unless I could afford it with my checkings account, with my debit card, because that's how you fall into credit card debt, and that's never a good idea. So yeah, and then after high school, I did not go into college. I technically, by the time I graduated, I had like about a year and a half full with college credits, because I've been taking college classes since I was in 8th grade for the sake of learning. But I never went to like a 4-year degree, so I never got into student loans, which I'm super grateful for. Never went into student debt, which is amazing. But if you're going to go to college and you have to pay for your own education, then you should listen to my podcast about how to make 6 figures out of college. It's with a software engineer. He's incredible. He makes bank. He's banking like high 6 figures. Well, I guess mid 6 figures. So he's doing really good. But that podcast episode can be quite insightful. And then I started monetizing, because I'm a full-time content creator and social media coach, for those of us who are new. If you're not new, then you already know this. But I started monetizing my social media presence. I started doing social media coaching, live coaching. It was not really for the sake of like monetization itself. Obviously, it was just me developing in my career. So it was one-on-one sessions, workshops. I had a membership community, like little going together club. But honestly, if I'm being super transparent, it took me a while to figure out how to monetize my social media effectively as a content creator. Because obviously you can launch things like sell you digital products and do this and do that, which all of the things I did and tried. But it's really hard how to figure out how to work with brands, right? Because one of the biggest ways that you can get paid on social media if you have a following is through brand deals. Like you can actually make bank. And I did not know how to do that. It took me years to figure out. But since then, I've accumulated and put together all the knowledge, all the information, no fluff, like just direct brand contacts, the negotiation process, what you need to know, like what you need to do, step-by-step instructions, UGC, brand deals, how to launch your digital products. Because one of the first times I ever made a single dollar online was actually when I was launching my own online store, Going Together Club, with like planners and habits. And I made thousands of dollars from it. And I had no idea how that worked. So that was really cool. All my knowledge, all the knowledge of my clients, obviously, because I work with them. So like I've gained a lot of insight from that, is all in a Creator Camp 2.0, which is a 6-week coaching program. It's an exclusive one. It's by interview only. I want to make sure that you're the right fit for the program, and the program is the right fit for you. Our community is the right fit for you, and vice versa. So if you're interested, then click the link in the description of the podcast episode or the YouTube video, and we'll talk about it more there. You can book a call and we'll talk. But that's something I'm working on right now, and I have been. I'm really excited for it because it's a 6-week program, and there's also a creator challenge happening in the program where the money that you invest into the program, your goal is to make it back within the next 12 weeks for a great prize. We'll decide exactly what that will be, but it's a prize that might level up your content creation by quite a bit. So that's something I'm working on. That's my financial history. Now, obviously, I'm, like I said, financially entirely self-sufficient. I still live at home with my family, but I've been paying my share of the rent and like utilities for years. So that's good. I love helping my family in that way. I think it's very important. A lot of my American friends think it's like really weird. They're like, oh, like you're paying your parents just to live there. Super weird. But I think it's helping my parents. And I just was raised with a different mentality where if you're part of a household, you contribute whatever you make to the household. My mom was telling me how when she was young and growing up, any money and all money she would make, she would just give straight to my grandma, which her mom, when she lived with her. So I love living with my family. I actually had a goal. I was like, I want to move out this year. Like I want to live alone, but I don't want to live alone. I love living with them. Like it's a family dynamic unlike probably anything you've ever seen before. Anybody who ever visits my household, it comes over for like a family dinner. They're like, oh my gosh, your family's goals. I'm like, I know, because they're my little best friends. So I was really lucky in that way. So yeah, I live with them, pay my share of the rent, like help them out financially as much as I possibly can every single month, and onwards. And I just think it's like my duty as like a child of theirs. So I do that. So that's where I am right now. Now, let's talk about big purchases, such as me getting my dream car. That's a question a lot of people of us, Gen V, have had, like, oh, you got a new car, like, why'd you get a new car? It's so expensive, blah, blah, blah. All that. Let me break it down, okay? Because it may seem like I make big purchases just to make big purchases. We'll also talk about my $300 gym membership. But truthfully, I'm very smart about money. Part of the reason, because I do have spending anxiety, you'll never catch me dropping money just for no reason. I don't even go shopping. Like, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I can afford, like, a lot of it. But I'm always like, I can't afford it. So I do not buy stupid things ever. My biggest, like, most reoccurring payments outside of like business expenses and obviously rent, utilities, and everything is coffee. Those are the things that I do splurge on. Like coffee shops. I go with my boyfriend every Wednesday. We have coffee shop Wednesdays. Also on Sundays, like when we go. So like the only thing I really allow myself to get is coffee. But I do want to renovate my style, so I do want to go shopping a little bit. Now, with big purchases and with getting my dream car, why did I need a dream car? Or why did I need a car? First of all, when I was making my vision board for 2024, I was like, my dream car is a Tesla. Like, I've been wanting Tesla for years. I can't believe how I finally have it. Such a pinch me moment. Like, big girl doing big girl things and getting big girl cars. And I was like, okay, so I was, at the time, I had a car, Toyota RAV4, and I was sharing it with my dad. Like, because I mean, I didn't drive that much, but obviously I still had to drive. And like, I live at home with my family, like I said, but obviously I was like paying for my share of it. Like my insurance, like I was paying from day one. So it was like that. But then the lease for that car, because we lease cars, and for my Tesla also I lease it. I do not want to buy a car ever. There's just so much headache. That's just not the path for me. Leasing all the way. Like, I think it's super smart. And I'll talk about why I made that decision. But that lease for the RAV4, my previous car that I shared with my dad, was expiring in July. It is now March. Okay. So it's expiring in July. And I was like, okay, so like I'll get a car closer to there. But I've already been to a Tesla dealership because I thought that it expired in May, and for Tesla you have to place an order. So I was like, okay, I just want to have like some time in advance. I went to a Tesla dealership once. I was like, okay, so like closer to April I'll start thinking. And then I went the second time just to film. Okay, I have that vlog up, and then I ended up walking out with a new car. Here's why. Originally I wanted a Model 3, just like a little car. I don't really care about cars. I'm not a car person. Like, to some people it's a status of like wealth and like cars, you know, like for example, my boyfriend got a Porsche Cayman 718 the week after I got my Tesla. To him, it's been his dream car. He's like, I want a sports car. Like, but for me, I'm not like that. I don't really care. Like, I'd rather spend that money on other things. Me personally, okay, unless it's a tax write-off, which as a creator, technically you can write off your car as a tax write-off if you have another car. But I'm not a tax advisor, okay, so do not take that as advice. And I was gonna get a Model 3, but when we were at the dealership, and after I did a test drive of Model 3, the car dealership guy, he was like, hey, actually there's like a sale or a really special deal happening for Model Ys. It's only until the end of February, so I had 4 days to decide. And I was talking to my mom and my sister, Alexandra, because they were there, and I was like, should I not? I was super nervous. I do not like make big purchases. Financially, like, I did not plan for that in the moment. It was no trouble, but I don't know, mentally I was not prepared. And they were like, well, you can do this now, or you can wait for another like 2 days, but it's much better to get a Model Y long term, right? Because my lease is for 3 years. Maybe I'll shorten it to 2 years, but I did it for 3 years. The reason why I did not want to buy an electric car is because, like, I think 4 years in, you have to change the batteries, and that's $20,000. And I do not love a car that much to spend $20,000 on it for no reason. I don't know what the benefit of owning a car is, because as soon as you drive off with it, it loses 20% of its value. That's not something I would ever do. I just don't think it's really smart. Unless it's like your dream car, your weekend car, you want to get a Porsche or something, like my boyfriend did. He bought it, so like, I guess. But for me, I don't know. I just want to lease it because it's just no headache. I can change it. It's like my phone. I don't know. My phone is not like bought. It's on a lease, kind of. And I can just take it back when the lease is up and get a better phone. That's something I like, and that's something I want to do. I just think it's way smarter, but that's just me. So there was a crazy deal happening on Model Y where they would write off, I believe, like $7,500 or $8,000 in tax credit off the lease total. So my monthly payment would be significantly less. So I was like, hold up. Hold on. And obviously, if it's for 3 years, that's in 3 years, I'm going to be older, you know, and I want to have a nice car. I don't want to drive a Model 3 because, I don't know, I like bigger cars. I like SUV types, which is crazy because my boyfriend's Porsche, like, Cayman 718. It's so low. Like, I feel like I'm literally sitting on the ground. It's great, and I'm super happy for him and all, but, like, that's not a car I envision getting myself, you know? So it just worked out. It's like stars aligned with Model Y, so I got it. Love my Tesla. I have a second vlog coming soon of like me picking it up and then test drive and everything, my initial impressions. I think it's super nice. Smartest decision ever. And why was it a smart decision? Because first of all, I needed a new car anyway. Because like I said, that lease on the original RAV4 was expiring in July. I got a little bit earlier, but it was just a good deal. Secondly, it was a good deal. Third of all, I'm leasing a car. Like buying a car, do not see myself envisioning it. Leasing, it's just monthly payments. You can do a down payment on it so your monthly payments are smaller. You don't have to. Personally, I didn't because I was like, well, the monthly is like fine. There's also the Tesla insurance, which is way cheaper than any other car. So it's a financially smart decision. The car itself, I think, is worth like $50,000, but obviously it's just monthly payments for me. So when thinking about like the things that you want and making smart decisions, I think a big part of it is abundance versus scarcity mindset. For example, I have a gym membership that is worth $300. It's actually $260, but like 300 just sounds more cohesive. If you know the gym, you know the gym. It's my favorite thing ever. But when I tell that to my friends or even my siblings, like my sister and her boyfriend, they're talking about, they're like, oh my gosh, it's like $260 a month for a gym. But in my mind, it's like, yeah, it's $260 a month from a gym. And I noticed myself that when I joined the gym, and maybe it's part of the reason is because I am self-employed and I work for myself, but my income increased by about like 25% pretty immediately. I just started working harder. And this is where the mindset comes in, because you can be like, well, I have no money to join like a gym like that, or oh, I have no money to get this car. Or while you're still being financially smart, okay, do not spend your last money on the things that you want, because I think it's like, I don't know, I'm financially conservative in that way. But if you know that it's going to make you more successful in the long run, I think it's a really good idea. But that's just me personally, right? Like I said, with the gym, it increased my income. With the car too, actually. It's an immediate return on investment for me. I'm like, oh, I just kind of like sit back and watch. But point is, when you have those financial obligations, me personally, I find myself working a lot harder. That's kind of like when I started paying rent and utilities for my parents, because we rent a house. We also like leasing. The common thing was leasing. When I started paying my share of the rent and utilities, it just put me in such a financial discipline chokehold, which is really nice, because then I started allocating my money and budgeting in a whole different way. It's like I got a sense of like money, because before that I would make like $3,000 and be like, oh, like I have $3,000, cool, but it was not attached to anything, I just like save it. But now I'll know, like, okay, so this is my life and how much it costs. This is what I want. This is how I can work towards it. Which brings me to the topic of setting financial goals. A really good example of how to do that is, especially if you are self-employed or you have a side hustle, okay, such as social media. Might want to check out Creator Camp 2.0. But just do a financial breakdown. If you want to make $5,000 a month, write out all the ways. So start with $5,000 a month. Write out all the ways how you can make it, what you need to do for each way, and how it's going to come together, and when you want to accomplish the goal by. That really grounds the goal. Because you can meet so many people and they're like, I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a billionaire. I want to make $1 billion a year. Like, okay, cool. How are you going to do that? What's your plan? And for me, when I started doing that plan, it kind of changed my life, because right now I'm making the exact amount I wanted to make like a year and a half ago. I'm actually making a little bit more, but like it's crazy, because this is the exact thing that I wanted. And I have financial goals set for like June of this year, because I want to be making more in a specific amount, and then I want to be making more in a specific amount. Why do I want to be making it? That's also written out in that goal. It's very important to set financial goals. And also with the mindset, abundance versus scarcity. Will this help you be more successful? Yes or no? Because that's really what it comes down to. My boyfriend talks about this a lot, so that's kind of where I adapted it. But I think with spending money, when you're really old and when you're 90 years old and on your deathbed, personally, I want to be on my deathbed when I'm 111, because I'm going to die at 111, not earlier than that. Maybe later. I want to live for a very long, long time. But when I'm on my deathbed, I'm never going to be like, oh, I wish I saved my money, Like, that's not a thought that's ever going to cross my mind. But if I'm racked up in debt and I just lost my job because of layoffs, I'm like, oh, I wish I had a financial pillow and didn't spend all money on, for example, travel, then I might think about, I wish I'd saved more. So, like I said, it's very important to be financially responsible. I personally am, like I said, I do have a little bit of a spending anxiety, which I guess is scarcity mindset, but I really am detaching myself from it and go more into abundance. Because here's the thing, if I want to make more money, I can just go out and work more and make more money, or work smarter and make more money, or work more and work smarter to make 2 times more money. Because truthfully, in your life, you're always in the driver's seat. It seems like you're the passenger, like, oh, well, I'm underpaid, I'm overworked. Like, horrible. But what are you going to do? You know, if you don't like the situation that you're in right now, what actionable steps are you going to take to overcome it? Are you going to quit your job? Are you going to get a better one? Are you going to start working for yourself? Are you going to start a hobby, a side hustle that you can do on the weekends to make some more revenue? What are you going to do? And when you think about it in those terms, it really just instills a sense of responsibility in you. And that's something I'm really grateful for, because I'm chilling, I'm killing now in my 20s, very early 20s, actually. Fun fact, I'm not even 20 yet. I turned 20 in like 2 weeks. I'm 19. So kind of slaying, kind of living. It was a short podcast episode, but I hope it was a successful one in that it inspired you and it motivated you. And I just think financial literacy is such an important topic that's not talked about nearly enough. Now, where am I right now financially? I actually got a financial advisor, which is really cool for like investments and everything. Once I figure it out fully, I'll talk maybe about it as well. Once again, not financial advice, just sharing my experience. But I think being smart with money is very important, because money is how we can make our dreams come true, make our goals come true, and just lead like a good life. Because it's not fun when you're in times when you can't afford anything, and like you're literally having stomach stress pains because you're like, I have no money. Like, what do I actually do? That's happened to me sometimes. It's happened to me in the past, and let me tell you, it was not fun. Thankfully, I have not experienced that in a while. I do not ever plan to, but there's been moments like that. Anyway, thank you for listening to my podcast episode. Subscribe and follow me for weekly podcast episodes every Wednesday at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we'll talk again soon. And if Creator Camp 2.0 sounds interesting to you, then click the link in the description. Bye. 3, 2, 1. Launch to success with Vera V.